All right, and we're live again with Freddie Podakari, and wanted to bring him back on the podcast again because the last time I had him on, he gave us heaps of value, and I really wanted him to come on the podcast again and talk more about influences that he's getting ideas from, especially on LinkedIn, more free game when it comes to acquisition and organic flow, especially with personal branding and what he's seen this week and how he's moving forward. And we might just start off with that. So, Freddie, good to see you again.
Yeah, nice
How's
to see you
how's
too.
the last 7 days for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I say after our call, I actually got quite a lot of discoveries in terms of when I was doing my own outbound side. But views have been lower compared to my last week. And I think I've got a reason for that. So, some of the LinkedIn creators, I don't know if you know T Tony Brophy, he's doing really well in terms of just sharing his advice and sharing his experience. No hook, no nothing. He just goes and says, I booked this amount of meetings in this amount of days, or like week one cold calling, and it's doing really, really well. Over, I think he got a couple of million or 8 million impressions in literally under a month, which is crazy. And that sort of inspired me and that made me post my cold calling stats. And obviously, that pretty much blew up for my eyes. I think I got 9,000 impressions, which wasn't too much in the like big span of things, but I think I got about between 20 to 50 inbound messages about people really interested. But yeah, that is definitely a personal or like a brand creator definitely to have a look in. Obviously, he's not actually running his own business, but it's good to incorporate that sort of sharing experience side. And then there's another content creator called Lara. She's quite like sort of she's been in the LinkedIn game for I think about a couple of years now. But again, she posts a lot of free value, and obviously those posts do really, really well. And I think it captures the audience because I myself subscribed to her newsletter because I found it really, really insightful. But yeah, it's something definitely interesting. What was for you, Philip? What was some of the hot takes that you've got from this last week, and how exactly do you think LinkedIn creators might be needing to start using like videos or short form or long form content?
Yeah, for sure. And I really want to preface this by saying, like, as much as this podcast is for free value and it's for you guys to actually implement, if you don't implement, it's just entertainment. And for one, listen to Freddie and what he said about deleting your connections and really
Yeah.
filtering out your ICP because I had one video pretty much go viral on LinkedIn. So in the last it was 2 day it was a 2 day old video. And on the second day, it started with 34K impressions and then it shot up to like 200K. And by the 48th hour, it was like 420K impressions. So that's crazy. So there's two things that I started to think about when it came to that. Well, one, I implemented a change, which is I followed what Freddie said, so trying to narrow down my ICP. Maybe there was a connection there, maybe not. Maybe it was the LinkedIn algorithm. And it's funny that you were talking about Tony Brophy because I actually messaged him. I'm like, hey bro, these are my stats for this week. I know you've gone viral, but can you tell me what this means? And to be honest, as popular and as viral as he is, for those who don't know who we're talking about, I suggest you go on LinkedIn and follow him, Tony Brophy. He's this Irish SER guy. And you know what we mean when he's going viral because he's got this kind of this blend of being authentic plus this kind of it's not it's like a meme, but it's working really well for him, and that's why people really like him. And I've been just implementing his raw, unedited videos into just churning out content because that's essentially what he's doing. He's just churning out content and being authentic about it. But going back to this video, yes, like I like to think it is from like filtering out the my connections because as soon as I did that, it just went bonkers. So the only thing that I'll talk against that is because is the impressions weren't in the same ratio. So I ended up getting like maybe two inbound from that. They were pretty good. One guy, I'll talk to you about it. One guy, he's from the I think it's called water irrigation and regenerative space, and he's wanted to get into podcasts as well. So I reached out to him. 25K following count and just building relationships off him from that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of just following who's doing really, really well. And the I'll say this one last thing before I hand it back to you. With hooks, uh, I've I've just copied and pasted what's going really, really well. And I'm not too sure if you know this person. He's also big on LinkedIn. His name is Chris Donnelly. So he's
No,
doing
I haven't heard of him.
essentially I went onto his profile, scrolled to a hook that was doing well, and essentially I just copied and pasted. It was CEOs listen up, and that was the hook that I also incorporated on the 420K video that went viral. So all I can say is what I'll be implementing pretty much forever because the whole idea of marketing is just layering on something that you can pretty much implement forever. Because if you can implement small little uh, factors to help yourself and your business, that's essentially what marketing is. So with content, you're just making sure that it's valuable and it's there forever to let views compound and let inbound traffic flow in. So yeah, I highly suggest being less creative on hooks, going on high profile accounts, looking what post is going way more popular than other posts, copy that hook, and then make a post about that. And that's what I've been doing and layering on with in terms of content creation.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, for me, I'd say like I do something similar, or I try to, let's say I want to, share my experience. I always find a way into, how I can turn it into a hook. So like how I did this, or how I did this, followed by, like you can get it for free too. And I feel like a lot of people want that free value. And there's like a difference between that free value and then actually converting them. What would you say, Philip, is like once they've got your free value and you have that connection, what would you say the steps are to sort of converting them into a high ticket client?
Yeah, so I'm still testing it. The first thing I did was I just went for like a hard pitch, and that really didn't work. And if you just think about it from yourself, if someone tried to pitch you straight off the bat and they were like cold traffic, you just wouldn't want to
Yeah,
participate in the conversation. Versus if you just had something a bit more softer, they'll be more inclined. And essentially, as convenient as social media is, you still have to build relationships, especially with LinkedIn. It's way more of a professional type of feel. You'd still get dodgy people, but again, you're trying to be that professional, you're trying to be the one standing out. So I guess if you wouldn't do a hard pitch in real life, you probably wouldn't do it on LinkedIn. It may work for some people, but for me, I've been testing more soft pitches and just try to build relationships first. And I'm at the stage where I'm trying to do more free value. And this is I haven't come across any content on YouTube or any of my algorithms where people talk a lot about free value. But for me, I feel like free value is where my journey is at the moment, where I can get enough case studies to actually prove to the fact that I can provide value to my ICP, which is essentially organic traffic via podcast. And I have a feeling people who are starting out and they're just doing it by themselves, they're trying to make a quick buck. But I feel like there's a lot of steps and processes before the first paycheck.
definitely, definitely. And how many messages are you like sending out? Are you tracking that? And if so, like, what would you say is the best way to like track, your success in terms of outreach wise?
Yeah, like honestly, I would say I'm not the best at it. I know with LinkedIn, you're supposed to average around 20 a day if you're doing if you're doing outbound every single day. So on top, what I've been doing, I've been extremely slack. I would not recommend people follow what I'm gonna say, but because I know it doesn't work, because I'm a big believer in stats. I've been tracking my videos more than anything, but in terms of outbound, it's more just who replies and then just follow up with the ones that replies. I know follow up is really, really strong. I should start implementing that now that you said it. That's one thing that I know I should be doing more of, just follow up, because well, I'd love to get
Yeah,
your
definitely.
opinion about follow up, because I know follow up is really, really crucial when it comes to cold outreach.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I feel like I've got quite a large connection base. And when I first started, I didn't actually use following up, and I used to just do a lot of cold outreach, and I'd just be like sending all of these generic messages, and they'd convert, and I'd get a lot of meetings, but I feel like a lot slipped through the gap, and I feel like a lot got like stuck in that first, second message after, because I just when you have a large amount of replies, it's just hard to, constantly find all of them. So for me, I'd say following up is definitely crucial. I'm starting to do more of like a personalized um connection note, and also like if I'm ever outreaching, I always look at their profile, see what they're doing. I'll like, hi, great to see another UK based agency or another person in the agency space. Would love to connect, would love to see if there's any synergy, stuff like that. That really works, and using the word partnership is way better than like, would you be interested in hopping on a call? Because when they see partnership, they're like, okay. And in the partnership, when you're in the call, you can discuss it. And if it's like, look, I don't think this partnership will be the greatest fit, but I do think that this could help you still. And then, that leads a lot and opens a lot of doors in way more than like saying, oh, would you be interested to hop on a call? I think you'd be, but saying like, let's say you're good connections and you've been talking back and forth, and you go and say, hey man, I don't want to come across salesy or anything, but I'm actually taking on a couple of clients at the moment. I think you would be a great fit. Obviously, I don't want to like jeopardize what we have. So how about we just hop on a quick call? I show you the exact system that got me this. And then at the end, if you think we're a good fit, then we can sort of see if there's like any synergy. And I feel like that's really powerful, rather than just going and saying like, oh, I think like book in here, or let's schedule a call, or I'd happy to show you. I'd say like once you're already good with them, and then with the follow-up side, it's important to always maybe 2 to 3 days just be like, did you manage to receive my message? Then you just send one more after that, and just be like, hey man, like, or hey name, I understand you're probably busy. If you're able to get back to this, wherever, and then just leave it from there, because you don't want to annoy them, and you don't want them to just be like, oh, I don't, you want to have a chance in the future of maybe them coming back. So maybe just do 1 to 2 follow-ups at the most, but I'd say that's really important. But make sure you time your follow-ups in terms of, don't just send them the day after, give it like a day or two, then do it. And then I say having it, maybe I want to start having some sort of software that tracks, who I'm sending it to and reminding me to follow up. Because if you've got like 100 something people in your, who you've sent to over it's hard to keep track of who to follow up on. But yeah, I'd say that's basically what I'm doing at the moment, and it's working pretty well, especially for my clients.
Nice. And I'm always so surprised. I don't know if you get this, but just like you're so young, but you're just grinding it out. So where did this all come from?
Yeah.
Like this knowledge in terms of understanding outreach, follow-ups, cold outreach. Like what was your like, do you have
Well,
any background in terms of why you chose LinkedIn as like your preferred social media platform to try to, make build a business from?
I'd probably have to take you back maybe a year or two to where I first started. And back in the day, like a year, 2, 3 years ago, I used to do a lot of like YouTube videos in terms of like, I used to do so many trick shot videos. I used to start my own YouTube channel. I used to do like specific videos, and that got me sort of into the content creation space. And I remember when my first video, I got like, I think one of my best videos, I got 1,000 views, which to most people that seems like nothing. But for me, as a kid in my in living like just on my like literally just filming a video with my friends, I did a small trick shot video, and for me it blew up, and I got like maybe 10 or 20 comments. It wasn't that much, but for me it was like a lot, and that sort of started. And I was always sort of business orientated, or not business oriented, but like sort of content creation, because that's what I enjoyed. I remember having like my mates over, and we film some sort of video or something like that, and it just got me into that content creation and organic space. But then over the past those years, and especially when lockdown hit, um, it was where I started getting into like development and game development and freelancing. And I used to like, because obviously when you're stuck inside, there's not really much to do. And I remember just picking up and seeing like, oh, these guys are making cool games on, Unity or Unreal Engine, and they started developing. And not really, I wasn't really on the coding side, but more on the design side. And I was like, all right, this is really interesting. So I started doing that stuff. And obviously, to find people that want to, get modeling, you're gonna have to send some messages and send some outbounds. So I
Mm.
started sending a lot of outbounds. I used to do a lot of Discord stuff on Discord. And I used to, find quite a lot of people. And obviously I got so many no's and so many, not interested. But then over time it started getting easier. And then I actually started my agency and then I stopped for a while. And then I, restarted and I saw like a lot of people were making a lot of money in the automation and agency space. And I sort of that was about a year and a bit ago, and that really kick-started my agency. And I learned a lot from, Charlie Morgan, Alex Hormozy, and a bunch of other gurus. And I sort of combined those knowledge and what I'd learned from school communities and, talking to other people in the agency space who are already successful. That really led me to where I am today. And I chose LinkedIn because I saw it was really popping off. When I first joined LinkedIn, I was like, oh, this is just for you to look professional, isn't it? And then I realized like this is a market and a lot of people use their LinkedIn as their website. There's no websites. And I'd say my LinkedIn page is my website. Like I literally had like a couple of people book in. I literally connected with them. I didn't even send them a message and they was like, oh, I like your profile. I'm going to book in because that's how powerful your website is your website wants you to book you want them to get them to book in. But so does your LinkedIn, right? Like if you're getting connections, if you're posting, that's really important. And that's sort of got me to where I was today and why I use LinkedIn because I see it as a gold mine. And I feel like Twitter, which Twitter X and LinkedIn are basically both the two gold mines. And I do want to start exploring like what X has to offer because I've seen a lot of people do quite well on there too.
Yeah, nice. I'm the same. Uh, Pretty much. I don't know if have you heard of Cody Schneider?
No, no, I haven't.
Yeah, like he's the guy that got me into uh marketing and redistribution. Essentially, his definition of redistribution is how can you put your content or how can you outreach to the people who are where they well first the question is where they're consuming content. So you have to answer that question, like who was your ICP and where do they consume the information, where do they consume information from? If you can answer those two questions, you've pretty much answered 50% of your marketing problem. I mean, once you understand that, it's all about distribution. And what are you distributing? If you're in the online space, you're distributing information and content. So, and content is information. And that's essentially what got me into doing podcasts because he was the guy that's just dropping startup ideas. And he had this startup idea about how LinkedIn is the potential next gold mine because of what's been happening in the TikTok space, or essentially the short form space, where you're getting your average people turning to content creators and they're racking in attention. So what he's linking is founders who don't want to show their faces. So he's saying the demographics are people who actually don't use social media or above the ages of 40. They're seeing this trend and now they want to do either content creator marketing where they do affiliates or they want to be pretty much influencers themselves. And what better way to be an influencer than on LinkedIn? So that's why
Yeah.
that got me into LinkedIn. And essentially, LinkedIn is one of the slowest moving platforms in terms of creating short form and new
Yeah.
features. And the thing that I'm really bullish on is, and the reason why I'm doing this is short form content on LinkedIn, because at some stage they are going to implement the For You page, which is essentially it's
Yeah.
going to be an icon, the video icon. You just click that, and you're going to get that endless vortex uh, scroll of video after video after video. Because essentially, if you want to compete with all the other platforms, you're competing against other people's attention. So
Yeah.
that's essentially what got me into it as well. Just
When
content.
it Yeah, when exactly do you know when LinkedIn Shorts is coming out? Because I feel like it's been tested in some areas, but for me, yeah, in the UK they don't have it.
Yeah, I'm in Australia. I don't have it as well, but I've heard some American
Yeah,
cities are testing it. So is if you go on your mobile app and if you see the video icon on your LinkedIn, it means it's in your zone. But if you don't have that mobile app, then it's not there yet. But my play with this is that I'm trying to create a library of content. So when it does roll out, I'll be ready to go. And
yeah, definitely.
because I like to think if we're doing stuff like this, you're still pretty much ahead of the game. Because one thing that I'm trying to figure out and everyone's trying to figure out is how to monetize podcasts because no one really monetized it yet. And the way I'm thinking about it, is, I think I mentioned it to you before, is creating top of funnel organic
Yeah.
traffic, which is essentially chopping a podcast into short form pieces that will attract people just watching content into your world. And your world is your long form, your personal branding, and what you have to offer. And you have, if you have like some kind of offer, then that's gonna attract a lot of people in terms of getting organic leads, because we all know that how expensive advertising is, and as if you can somehow cut,
Yeah.
cut cost of customers, then that's a big value for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, that's definitely where you want to be. Because like for me, I'd say that like I'd say, and I'd like to say I'm pretty good at outbound, but there's always a limitation in terms of connections. And then you just sort of have to
Mm,
scale horizontally in terms of making more accounts. And I feel like that's great, especially for stability. But when it comes to like the inbound side, there is all of those agency owners out there probably do want to have it. They're like, you can do one post and you get 5 meetings booked. That is like probably what you want, or like let's say the dream. And I'd say like with me and you, what we're doing, we're pretty much ahead of the game in terms of getting that initial testing out there and seeing what exactly is working and what isn't, because that's really powerful when it comes to when LinkedIn Shorts does, come out. And I'd say what we're doing when we're testing out specific podcast type short form on Instagram and YouTube, I'd say we're definitely, progressing a bit more than like a lot of these other agencies that are like, they might be sending out basic messages or automated messages. And I'd say like it's crucial for them if they, pivoting to like that podcast type, you know, episodes and short form. But for any agency owners out there, what would you say is the best way to get started? So sort of what we're doing at the moment.
it totally depends on your mindset, because I honestly want a business that's cash flowing yesterday. And for me, in my head, it's always, if you don't have the money, then you have time. Okay. And if you don't have time, you've got to make time. And then you've got to start to think about sacrificing what you're doing right now, because business isn't for everyone and it's not easy. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So if you can figure that part out, okay, now you've got time. Because in my opinion, I'm keen to get your thoughts about it. But if you're not willing to play around with 3K to gamble, or not gamble, but to test ads,
Yeah,
then using paid ads is out of the question. So the other
yeah,
options are cold outreach, cold email, which takes a couple of bucks to set up as well. If you don't have that, then you're just down to content and outreach. And
yeah,
outreach is just super repetitive, tedious, but you got to do it,
mm,
because if
yeah,
you, my feeling is, if you're not at a million annual recurring revenue, your problem in business is no one knows you, so you have to do more marketing. So that's outbound or
yeah,
content. And content, I see it more as a long play, because you're building a brand. So you just got to pick and choose. For me, I'm erring more on the side of content, because that's what I've been deviating towards. But the last week, I feel like I've been procrastinating a lot. And for me, procrastinating is not doing enough outbound, because again, my main core is, I want to turn this into a cash flowing business. And I feel like a lot of people out there in our situation that wants to start business, they want to see cash flow straight away.
yeah,
But cash flow straight away is more transactional. You want to build something long term as well. But the biggest question, what do you
definitely.
balance? And my ethos is not about balance. It's just what can you leverage to get the most out of your buck.
Yeah, definitely. Because what I'd say, and I actually like to touch on that point when you said like a lot of, agencies out there have that mindset of instant gratification. And in terms of like having that transactional sort of, what you were saying about, they just want a one-off payment or they want it instant. And I feel like if you're wanting to have something instant and you're not willing to take your time to prove to these high ticket clients that you're A, you're worth their business, and B, that, a long-term relationship can actually be formed, I'd suggest you really like think about what exactly you think would work, in terms of what your offer is, what you're pitching. Because if you're pitching something and you're trying to get money and you just want to get something instant like that, I'd say that's not the best way to go about it. I'd say having that free value or having a value proposition there is really important. And don't get me wrong, those businesses out there who do like use those one call close, two call close, and they get, they're getting the revenue and getting the retainers, that's good. But you need to make sure that you're always prioritizing your client and making sure that, like, I'd say for businesses starting out who don't have case studies and who might not be able to convince a client that quickly to, get on board with them, the free value scenario, like what Philip is doing, is really important in terms of those two podcast episodes. Like literally, you get two podcast episodes, a bunch of short form. I'd say that's really good. And I feel like you should learn something, from that. And it's like, what are you doing? What services are you providing? And then what's a small service or something that might give their clients some instant or some results. That's something to definitely touch on, because if you're able to get your clients a little bit of results for free, they'd be like, yeah, I want to see what you can do. But then if you just go in there and say, oh, we've done this, there's not always a chance they're going to do the same. You're going to do the same for them, or you promise them something that's not exactly going to convert them fully, instead of actually showing them physically and having that physical, like you can see, oh, they're booked in a meeting. So I'd say, yeah, that's a really good point. And what would you say, Philip, for like, how would you say like the mindset that you've got to have for that? Because I know a lot of agency owners want to get, you know, that retainer or those clients, but they don't want to necessarily go through that, free value or content side that might take a little bit longer. What would you say like the mindset you need to have to be able to, constantly pushing out content and there might not be a chance of success?
Yeah, I guess, well, not I guess, I know it's all about delayed gratification. So if you can say to yourself, if you can guarantee that you have that mindset, and it sounds kind of wishy-washy, that you'll get to a million ARR with the next 2 years, but all you need to do is just post content. Yes or no, will you do it? But you won't get the million AR until 2 years' time. Yes or no?
Mm,
And obviously everyone says yes. But I'm at the beginning of my journey. So this is my third week of just consistently posting. When we talk about data tracking, I have been tracking my videos, and I've just watched my videos and be like, how can I improve this video 1% better? And then I do it. So in terms of data tracking, I track that. I need to somehow implement that with outbound, because that would just boost my metrics in terms of how I should be analyzing how I'm performing. And that's one thing I would recommend if anyone wants to start off, is to have time to track data, because that's essentially why a lot of big businesses are performing so well. They're tracking your data as well as their own. So if you know how to track your own data, you just find the thing that's working and then just over leverage the thing that's working. And for me, I'm really studying that video that went viral. Even if it didn't get much
mm.
engagement, I'm just going to figure out, how do I just replicate that again? Because that performed well. How do I do that over and over and over again? So going back to what you were saying, just delayed gratification, because you're not trying to hit a home run when it comes to content creation, because one, like, yes, that would be awesome, but then you just got to figure out, what do I sell? Because once you've got audience and attention, then you just have to figure out what to sell. Because if you figure out the marketing side, which is that attention, you just got to figure out what you can solve for your clients, because that's actually a pretty good position to have. But I feel like the long play here is just to keep building and just keep doing this forever. So if I could, or if I know that I could be posting forever, that's just some awesome layer of organic marketing to have, because I know I could just keep doing this forever. And if I just keep posting a video a day, or just do a podcast a week for the next 5 years, surely something would happen.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh. And that's like where a lot of people need to, leverage consistency. If you post something once and expect your whole page to go viral, like mine, I need to be definitely more consistent. I'd say I got lucky at the start with my, initial posting, but I'd say consistency is definitely needed to be leveraged, because like take my account, for example. I'm very inactive. Every single time I'll be in and out, in and out. And that's because I'm usually managing my other clients' profiles. And that's why I feel like they are getting better results, because I'm consistently posting on theirs. And I've tested that, and I feel consistency is key, especially for the LinkedIn algorithm. And I feel like for you, Philip, I'd say it's just a matter of time, and you need to, if you believe that like the content you're putting out and you like speak to other people, and I believe the content you're putting out is really, really useful, then there's only a matter of time when the LinkedIn algorithm will end up putting you out there. And same with the Instagram, same with the YouTube. It's just about the consistency game. Because like not everything happens overnight. Success doesn't happen overnight. You're not gonna get, a post gonna blow up straight away. It might do, but it might not. And there's a big chance. And that's where a lot of like content creators sort of tend to fall short because they'll go and post maybe a week or so of content and then they'll go and say like, oh, why am I not getting these results? And I feel like what you're doing is great, but I'd say to have any results or any agency owners out there that want to get those content results, it's just a matter of time and you need to be consistently putting out good content, not AI generated, not like, you spend 5 minutes writing a post, like really take your time and really make sure that the videos you're putting out there are valuable. So that's something I'd say definitely. And for you, Philip, so with your podcast, could you explain a little bit more about like your offer? Because I know your offer is really good in terms of like the two podcasts and then the short form repurposing.
Yeah, so essentially the whole entire offer is it's a B2B offer. So I'm pitching more to business owners. And what I do want to say, because we did to touch on this on a chat that we had earlier, is more about this how sophisticated the market is. And people know about podcasts and people know about short form. So I'm in that kind of market. So I do have to make the offer a bit more sophisticated. And right now I am trying to tweak it. So the sophistication level depends on how much people have heard about this offer and how much you're willing to charge. And at this stage, I'm still in the testing phase. Like ideally, it would be awesome if I could do, you know, 2 to 5K. That would be ideal, but not at that stage yet. So if we just bring it back and just to provide free value, it's more so to do 45 minutes to 60 minutes of content. So that way I just need a founder or agency owner's time for once a week, like what you're doing, Freddie, and just pick your brain about what you're seeing in your world, essentially what you're doing with clients and what kind of free value you can provide to provide that trust and credibility for you and your profile. You get that 45 minutes of trust, people are like, okay, I kind of know who Freddie is. Maybe I should book a call with him. But even before that, you think about top of funnel, and what top of funnel is where would people see you? So knowing who your business owner is. So let's say you're targeting agency owners. Where are they? Most likely LinkedIn for sure, YouTube
Yeah.
for sure, and potentially X. I haven't delved too much into X, so I can't
Mm.
say for sure. Maybe TikTok, but that's probably maybe B2C, which is
Yeah.
business to consumer. So if you really can understand where they're consuming information from, you just distribute information and content there. Get that top of funnel, which is the short form, which you will have a link to the podcast. You're going to also have a link to book a call with you. And I call them sales assets. And I wanted to touch on that based on the consistency. Don't think of you posting short form, think of yourself posting sales assets. And what a sales asset
Mm.
is, essentially, you're getting the same question over and over and over again in a sales call or in a discovery call. Most likely, it might be an objection they might ask about. And essentially, you address that in content form. And that way,
Yeah, that's good.
comes to a sales call, be like, oh, did you watch my content? Or, hey, I actually posted something about this. Or they watch
Yeah.
that content and be like, okay, you address this pain point,
Yeah.
let's not talk about that. I want to hear a little bit more and let's go in. It will address a lot of headache, a lot of stress, and it will streamline the sales process a lot more faster. So that's what I'm trying to do when it comes to refining my offer, making content more like sales assets. And again, if you're just compounding content as sales assets every single day, that will help compound inbound traffic, in my opinion. That's what I'm aiming for, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that makes so much sense. And I like that term that you use, sales asset. And it's like your consumers or whoever you're targeting is gonna have, you're not pitching them. Like me and you were just having a conversation here. Yeah, it's like a pitch to them, but it's not. It's like indirectly pushing them towards, if that be booking a call. And that's really important because I know a lot of businesses currently aren't doing that. But if they were to sort of, get started into that, content form, or, what is sort of like the time? Because I know you said like podcasts, it's not that much effort. It's quite low effort in terms of you just got to sit down every week. What would you sort of be like your thoughts on like the the back end side of like chopping it all up and like repurposing it? How would you sort of go about that? And that's for any agency owners out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be podcasts. It can be if you're a coach, leverage uh your coaching calls or your AMAs. You just record all that and you chop it up and you repurpose it. And you say, this is a snippet into my community, or this is a snippet into my Discord community. If you like this, watch the whole thing. I'll give one out once per month. But if you want to actually be involved, you can see how these people are getting results. I mean, I'm saying podcast form, but anything that's more than 30 minutes to 45 minutes, you can just use that and kill two birds with one stone and just repurpose it. Because the whole entire game that I'm trying to play is who's going to win the distribution game, which is who can post the content the most and who can distribute it to where customers that you want to sell to buy. So in my process is essentially, hey, I've got I'm doing a podcast. I'd love to for you to jump on. I'll do it completely for free just so we can test what is working, what is not working. And how we're testing it
Yeah.
is I'm going to be posting on YouTube and my LinkedIn profile. I'll look at the metrics. The next episode, be like, okay, let's do more like this, less like this, and look at the metrics again. And
That's
then
good.
essentially I'm building you a library of content that you can just keep repurposing.
Yeah,
And
that's important.
that's what I'm leveraging for organic because I know a lot of people aren't at a million
Yeah.
recurring revenue yet. So I know
Yeah.
there's a client acquisition problem, which is essentially a marketing problem. Because if we punch down the numbers on average, you're averaging maybe 1% or 10% in terms of response rates. And when you're trying to close, like minimum 20 to 25%, especially for high ticket. So if we just
Yeah, definitely.
push it backwards, it's always a marketing problem if you're not at a million annual recurring yet. So that's why I'm pushing this podcast because a lot of people don't have money. I'll do it for free. Let's build some relationships. And by the end of it, I'd love to think that I've got a collection of business owners that I can sell to for some other offer that I think about. Because
Yeah.
when it comes to business, it's not about how much you earn, it's who lasts the longest. Because I'd like to get
Mm.
your thoughts about this because I was going to ask you this before you asked me a question. But what are your thoughts about business and people giving up? Because prior to doing digital marketing, content creation, and personal branding, I was in sales. And one thing I started noticing is I'd say, within a span of 2 to 3 months, a lot of people started giving up or just transitioning to something else, like outside of like business and sales and online space. But what's your thought in terms of what have you seen in your world in terms of are people giving up or are people just sticking through
Yeah.
or why are you still going? Why aren't you giving up?
I mean, for me, I feel like a lot of agency owners quit, or some agencies quit, or like businesses. I used to do some other stuff in businesses, like I was talking about my YouTube channel. I don't do that anymore. And I feel like for me back then, and for a lot of other people, they might have a go at it and have a run at it for like a month. But let's be honest, and everyone you might talk about or tell, you might be like, oh, I'm doing this. They might be like, oh, you might want to get something stable. And some people might be like, you know, but for me and for anyone out there that wants to take that risk, you're not going to make it in a couple of days. You're not going to make it in a month. You're not going to make it in a year. And maybe even a couple of years, you still might not be able to make it. But it's about that consistency. And it's like everyone else that's like saying, oh, you want to get that stability. Oh, or like, because you have other people like pressing on you, being like, oh, because I know for me, I have a lot of like my parents are sort of saying like, oh, you want to go to school, go get a job, and for me, I don't feel like that's my avenue, and that's why I'm saying like a lot of people are going to be saying like, oh, you want stability, like you might not make it in a specific time frame, but every single day that you're trying. And you will end up getting successful if you have that right mindset. And if you're leveraging specific people, you're learning from people, then you're going to do it. But if you quit, you're just going to prove them all right. And that's why for me, it's so important that like you got to keep on pressing, you got to keep on doing it. And if it's something that isn't working, you got to find out why it isn't. And then you change it. And then you do it again and you change it. Do it again, you change it. Like, I don't know, I've seen if you've seen my recent post, but I literally had 6 months, no clients. I sent out thousands of messages and I didn't get anywhere. I didn't get anywhere. I might have got a call or two, but I got nowhere. But that taught me so much. And I feel like if you're having no success at the start, that is better than having success because like the only way you can go from the bottom is to go to the top. Like if you're the bottom, no messages, no clients, there's only one way up, right? But then when you're at the top, like you got to keep that there. And when you're at the start, you don't know exactly why that happened. You're like, this blew up, but why? Like for you, you want to know why. And then you're like trying to maintain that specifics. Like when I started posting, it got really good, but then now I'm start dropping off because I need to know why that's happening. But when you're at a bottom and you just keep on going and going and going, you build up those experiences and skills. So if you're one of those agency owners that are struggling with outbound, you're struggling with inbound, you're not getting any clients, you're not getting any meetings, you need to find out why. And one of the best places to find out why is like you look at all of these gurus, what are they doing? Like I see a lot of people nowadays, they all go and say, "Oh, I'm going to use this exact guru's message." Well, you've clicked on a video that's got 100,000 views. Most of these guys are agency owners, and most likely they're using it, right? But if you use that and adapt it, find out why it works, and then create your own copy, and you do that over again and again and again, and you iterate it and you keep on changing, you're going to get somewhere. And I say with consistency every time, if you're consistently doing the right things and taking the right actions, you will get somewhere. But it's just a matter of time. And that's one of the biggest things in terms of mindset. You got to have that mindset of just pushing through. Like some days you're not going to get anywhere. Like this week kind of sucked. I got a couple of meetings. I didn't do that well in terms of outreach, and I didn't get many people messaging me. But then the next week, I just need to know why didn't that work. So it's all about a matter of time. So yeah,
Nice. Yeah. And also, I want to touch base on that as well. Like, I would also say for me, like last week could have been better as well. And again, the awesome thing about podcasts is that you can debrief. And if you're just starting, like it's awesome that you've got a business partner, but I'm doing this solo and I'll be completely
yeah,
transparent. It can be pretty bloody lonely, especially if you're like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And it's just
yeah,
good to touch base on someone that's on the same journey as you. And
mm,
that's why, like again, podcast is just a way to be like, hey, this is me at the start, being totally transparent
yeah,
with you. Like I'm still looking for my first buck. What are you up to? Oh, I'm doing actually the same thing. I'm still looking for
yeah,
my first buck. I've been following these gurus. I've been kind of going through their free value, doing something like outreach, and I'm still kind of struggling. And
mm,
we should really understand these stats. Like, if your business is hard, and every single first business fails on the first year. And I actually feel like if you get past 5 years, then you're doing something right,
yeah,
and you're actually being you have a healthy, sustainable business more than just 1 year. So yeah,
yeah,
like if anyone like wants to do podcasts, like I highly recommend it because ultimately you're investing something.
yeah,
If it's not your money, you're investing your time, and you just have to really understand like what do you want to do with your time. Like touching base on what you were saying earlier about being stable. Yeah, sure you can be stable, but is that ultimately what you want? If that's what you want, then awesome. You can
yeah. I
just
understand.
stay consuming content. Nothing wrong with consuming content. I consume content as much as you and everybody else. But for me, I do want to be creating, and I feel like building a business is
Mm,
the next thing in terms of layering what I want to do in my life, not just consuming. And that's essentially what brought me to here and talking to you and making a podcast because I generally feel like we need to be leveraging something more than consuming. And
yeah,
we don't
definitely.
need to be creating more, to be honest.
Yeah, and I know I'd actually want to touch on that point that you said about like, there's entrepreneurship is typically lonely chapter. It's like a lonely chapter. Like, you want to, have that connections of agencies that, are technically successful. And then you're sort of starting where, there's a lot of startups in that position in terms of like, they're starting out, they're trying to make their first bit of money, but then there's so many successful agencies and there's lots of networking events that even I don't go to any of these, but I know there's a lot of, agency owners that are successful. Like you've got Liam Motley and Alex Hormozy, they always meet up, they do stuff. And I feel like for me, like that's where I want to be. And that's why I actually made a community for people starting out. because for me that's really important. I made a community for, agency startups who are looking to, get into that, those networking and those things, and that's why I help people out. So every week, I'll actually send a Discord link, or Philip might add it as well, where every week for free I do like a little small seminar. I know that the times have been quite bad for you, but I'm working on changing that and changing the whole server up in terms of like a full community resources and sort of a section where everyone can sort of share ideas. Because like I know there's a lot of people starting out well as well, and I feel like it's really important to recognize others' journeys. And like, you won't just have to be there like, oh, this isn't working, but you just look at people and you just look at the content. But then if you've got people that are actually doing it real time, they can explain a little bit more. Because I know a lot of influencers or, people, gurus in the space are quite vague. And I feel like it's nice to, have an hour conversation like we have here about an in-depth thing. And obviously that's really good for your podcast as well, Philip, because like for Philip, who's, talking in with all of these different agency owners, when we get on these weekly calls, you can most likely, or I am going to start recording them. And then that's really good for anyone on that call that wants to push out short form, especially if they're answering or asking a question. And I feel like that's really important. So yeah, if anyone's interested, just, send me or Philip a message, or yeah, because it's a really good community. And I feel like I want to take it to new heights in terms of, potential meetups, having seminars weekly. And yeah, I feel like it's very powerful.
Nice, nice. And let's just end with one last question and thought in terms of if someone was actually watching this and they were like, damn, like you're almost saying the complete opposite to someone else's video in terms of like you can get money quick. We're actually almost saying like there's a big slog at the start. So
Mm.
if you were to give advice to yourself 2 years ago, I'm a big believer in community, but what would be the sequencing in terms of how do you use your time more efficiently if you had to buy back that 2 years based on what you
Well,
know now?
yeah, I mean, for what I'd say now, like when I was starting out my channel and stuff like 2 years ago, or any agency owner that was starting out, I'd say like what I would do is I'd just be consistent with it. Consistency and like following what other people are doing is so important. Like having that ability to just like block out anyone that's sort of saying like, oh, you want stability, or like try this, try that. Just consistently try something for like a good couple of weeks. If that isn't working, pivot. Keep on pivoting and find, or like make small tweaks. That's something I definitely suggest, and just sticking with it, because I'm sticking with this agency. But in the past, I know a lot of people that have gone and gone, oh, well, this didn't work. I want to try this and this and this and this, because they didn't get money out of it. Don't get me wrong, there are people that do get lucky and they do get money quick, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I feel like the influencer or guru sort of side is glamorized and only really touched on the people that get really good results, but there's not much touch on the people that get bad results. And I feel like that's a big thing. Like a lot of agency owners go into the game thinking, oh, I can make, 2 to 5K straight off the bat, and it's wrong. I didn't get any clients for 6 months. Yeah, I'm still here because I was just like, I know if I keep on consistently building and learning about stuff, I will get there in the end. And that's something that I'd say a lot of agency owners, you need to take that with you, especially if you're starting up a business.
Awesome, awesome. And I genuinely believe that community is everything because if you're getting people, especially friends and family, saying don't do it, do something stable, a
Yeah.
community is like your safety net essentially because you've
Mm.
got like-minded people going through the same thing and they're probably going through the same issues about people in their space offline that are saying the exact same thing. So if you've got a bunch of people, like-minded people saying like, yeah, this is what I'm going through as well, it'll
Yeah.
be way more easier to relate because then you've got some kind of support. And especially at the start, you definitely need support because essentially you're gonna feel like you're doing everything wrong. And I feel like that's why a lot of people are
Yeah.
quitting or pivoting because you're still at the start and you're pretty much testing which is essentially what I'm doing. The reason why I'm doing free value is one is I want to provide free value, and two, I'm testing my offer because I have
Yeah.
no idea what offer is good, and no one should know if their offer is good or not unless they've tested it a bunch of times, and that comes from just either
Yeah.
doing market research and addressing objections. If you're getting the same objection, if it's a price objection, a fee objection, or like the most the biggest one that you can't control is a value objection. So when
Yeah.
someone says, I do not see value in your offer, you're pretty much
Yeah.
cornered into be like, okay, I've got nothing else to say because if you cannot provide the value, then that's
Well,
checkmate.
yeah, I mean, as in like what I do in terms of combating that is like I look at the fat as the stats and the figures. Like I can say I've done this for some companies. Well, obviously you're sort of testing your offer, but I say to build a good offer, it needs to be backed. Like I can say, oh, I'm gonna get you 20 meetings, but are those 20 meetings qualified? Are they gonna book me meetings? Have they booked other people meetings and booked like further meetings, long-term relationships, clients in the past? Have they generated money? How much? You need to be able to be prepared with those questions. And I feel like for me, if someone went and said, what is the value? And I can explain, like, look, you're going to pay this amount of money, this much money, but you're also going to be getting this much in return. You're not just going to
Mm,
get this in return. You're going to get a lifelong system. You're going to get something you can repeatedly do. Like, that's for me. And I feel like for a lot of people out there, you're going to need to have the same thing. Like, you're going to need to be able to present your offer in a way of how it works for clients, how you're going to benefit and this is my plan for you. Because if you go in there and just be like, I'm going to do what I've done for every single other agency, they're just going to feel like a copy and paste agency. So you want to take bits of what's worked, put it custom, and then test it. Because then again, the best thing is if you're saying, oh, I'm going to customly make something for you. It's so valuable, but
yeah.
you gotta back up like, oh, I've customly made a system for this person and it is done this. Like I can guarantee those same results. And that's something really, really important in terms of your offer. You got to be able to back it up.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. That all comes from testing. Like in order to get
Yeah.
those things that you can back up, you've done iteration after iteration after
Yeah.
iteration. And that just comes from not giving up because if
Mm.
you've done something bad, you've got two paths. It's either you fix it, readjust it, or two, you give up. And there's so many people I've seen that just they don't want
Yeah.
to keep going because essentially you have to eat so much shit sandwiches until you're like, okay, I finally got
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, because I actually have something. Because like my first three clients, I underdelivered for all of them, and it's so bad. They paid me this money, and it wasn't even like a guarantee. I didn't have a guarantee. I just told people like I can do this for you, right? And I got three clients. So I hope none of them are watching, and if they are, I'm really, really sorry about it. But it was when I was not really starting out, but when I was 6 months in, and I actually ended up like I think I gave back the money to them, but I wasted quite a bit of their time in terms of their promise. I did get them maybe a meeting. Some of them I didn't even get that many. I didn't even get any meetings for. And obviously now I've like tried my best to make up for it in terms of like getting them meetings, getting them back. And now I know like this is a big problem because I'm the only person that's done bad client results. And now my client results are amazing. I'm getting people 5, 6, 7x return on investment. But before I was doing really bad and the guarantees I put out I couldn't even fulfill, and that was a big learning curve for me in terms of like I need to make sure this offer is tested, and B, don't promise something you can't deliver on. And now my ethos is under promise, over deliver, and I'll over deliver on every circumstance. Like literally, Philip, we've just met. He's not even like a client of mine. Yeah, I've given him like exactly what I do in his situation. I helped I gave you all of those tips and steps because now I want to, over deliver and be a bit more different compared to all of these other like marketing agencies out there who are, some marketing agencies out there aren't exactly promising what they can do. And I feel like that's a big thing to like learn from if you are ever getting into that space.
Yeah, and I'll leave it on that note because it almost seems like you're turning it more into a relationship than transactional because
Yeah.
transactional is short term and
Mm.
relationships you're actually planting a seed hoping that something big's going to happen, and when something big does happen then it's just like rep being reciprocal like on a bigger scheme, and that's pretty much what I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
And that becomes just based on having that pulse and having that feel like, is this person a winner based on first
Yeah.
impressions? And if they are, like, how can I build a relationship off of that? And it's
Mm.
funny that you say that in terms of before you were over promising and now you're under promising, but it seems like you learned from something emotional. And this is something that I got from a mentor. And I'm not too sure if you can relate. And we'll end on this, but um, a lot of the times for me, how things turn into from short-term memory into long-term memory is when it's something emotional. So it could be like a heartbreak or like some kind of business transaction that went totally wrong. That's definitely going to ingrain in long-term memory for you to be like, I will not do that
Yeah.
ever again. And for a lot of people, they like to learn through tactile reading or anything. But I feel like for me, it's definitely emotional because I just do not want
Mm.
that to ever happen again.
Yeah, you don't want to be able to be in that position where like you've done, for me, it's been like that. Like I've done bad results for a client and now I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. And that can be applied to not just business, but anywhere in any aspect of your
Exactly.
life. Like, that's where it's really important. And yeah, I'd say that it was a pleasure speaking with you. I really enjoyed this sort of podcast that we had here. And yeah, if anyone's ever interested, I'd suggest definitely checking out Philip. He's got a killer offer right now. And obviously, he's there to test and iterate. I'm there to test and iterate. But like, if you've seen some of his posts and his content, it's really valuable. And yeah, I'd suggest definitely checking him out.
Awesome. And for you, Freddie, how can people get access to your community and how can people communicate with you?
So if you go onto like LinkedIn or look on my LinkedIn or my Instagram, whatever it is that this content's been pushed out on, Philip will go and send a link in there where you can contact me on LinkedIn. You just send me a DM saying like, "Hey, I was interested in this." I'll have a look at your profile. Maybe we'll have a bit of a conversation, and then I'll go and plug you with my community, and you can go have a look at that in terms of the weekly calls, the communication, and then like if you need anything or any assistance, you just give me or any agency owner a message in there.
Awesome. Well, I do appreciate your time, Freddie, and I'd love to have you on for next time because I know you just keep punching out free value that can benefit not just me, but for everyone. So I do
Yeah,
appreciate your
definitely.
time, and I look forward to speaking to you next time.
Me too.
All right, all the best.
You too, man. Ah.